Narrator. I want to tell you about a man named Frank. Frank is 69 years old, recently retired, and by all accounts he's doing everything right. He goes to his appointments, he watches the news, and he keeps a close eye on his health. But lately, Frank has noticed something. It's not a pain or a sharp symptom, it's a quiet, persistent hum of anxiety that follows him from the breakfast table to the doctor's waiting room. He feels it when he sees a headline about a food recall, He feels it when the blood pressure cuff tightens on his arm. And he certainly feels it when his doctor mentions the word routine surgery, Frank thinks this is just what getting older feels like, a gradual surrendering to the verdict of his biology. But Frank is making a mistake, He has fallen into a daily habit that most of us don't even realize we have. It's a habit that quietly feeds anxiety by making us feel like spectators in our own lives, rather than the lead characters, Today, we're going to talk about that habit. We're going to look at the reading behind the reading, the recovery gap, and the hidden links in our food supply that the news often misses, By the end of this video, you won't just understand why you're feeling anxious. You'll have the exact tools to turn that anxiety into a quiet, steady confidence. My name is Dr. Mark. For 21 years, I've worked with adults over 60, and I've learned that the difference between aging with fear and aging with power often comes down to one simple shift in your daily routine, The illusion of the passive spectator. The habit that feeds our anxiety is passive information consumption. We take in data, a blood pressure number, a news report, your surgical recommendation, and we treat it as a final judgment. Take our food supply, for example. Right now, as we speak, there are multiple outbreaks spreading. Salmonella in eggs and cyclosporine in produce. Most people hear this and feel a vague sense of dread, They start looking at their lettuce or their eggs with suspicion. They manage their safety based on how food looks and smells, which is a reasonable approach for most things, but it's completely unreliable against salmonella inside an egg or a microscopic parasite on a leaf of spinach. This creates a single point of failure problem in our minds, We feel vulnerable because we don't see the link. We see two disconnected headlines, but the reality is that these outbreaks are symptoms of the same underlying vulnerability, a highly centralized food system, where a single point of contamination can silently reach millions of kitchens before a single case is reported, When you understand that contamination often traces back to the way water is handled in our modern food supply, the anxiety begins to lift. Why, Because you realize that you aren't a victim of bad luck. You're navigating a systemic issue that has a very practical, human solution, instead of passively worrying about the news, The shift is to adopt a proactive habit. For instance, did you know that the salmonella in the current egg recall can actually be inside the egg because it colonizes the hen's ovaries, Washing the shell does nothing, but heat does. Cooking that egg until both the yolk and white are firm, reaching 160 degrees, unconditionally eliminates the risk. Suddenly, the anxiety of what if my eggs are bad is replaced by the simple, quiet habit of thorough cooking. You've moved from being a spectator to a participant, visual, A close-up of a blood pressure cuff being placed on an arm. The hidden third number. We see this same passive habit in the doctor's office. Think about your last blood pressure reading, Most of us look at the top number, some check the bottom, but almost nobody looks at the gap between them. We treat that number on the screen as a fixed biological fact, but it's not, It's a snapshot of a 2-minute window in a specific chair. If you were talking to the nurse about your symptoms while the cuff was on, your reading could be 10 to 15 points higher than your actual pressure. If your back wasn't supported or your legs were crossed, you're adding phantom points to your health record. Jazz. This is where the anxiety lives, in the inaccuracy. We worry about a high number that might not even be real. But there is a reading behind the reading that most people are never taught to calculate. Jazz. Your pulse pressure. This is the difference between your top and bottom numbers. If your reading is 140/80, your pulse pressure is 60. If that gap is consistently above 60 to 65, jazz, it's a direct readout of arterial stiffness. As we age, our arteries lose their elasticity. They become like stiff hoses rather than pliable rubber. Jazz. This makes our blood pressure more reactive to the stresses of the day, a difficult parking situation or a tense phone call. When you know this, you stop obsessing over a single bad reading. Jazz. You start looking for the pattern. You realize that white coat hypertension, where your pressure spikes only at the doctor's office, affects up to 30% of adults. Jazz. The habit that kills the anxiety is active measurement. You don't just get your blood pressure taken. You sit quietly for 5 full minutes. You keep your feet flat. You don't talk. Jazz. You take control of the environment so the data you receive is the truth. Visual. An older woman like Dorothy, tending to a small garden but stopping to rub her knee. Jazz. The normal aging traplets talk about Dorothy. At 77, Dorothy was sharp and independent, but she started skipping her garden because her knees felt unreliable. She told herself, Jazz, this is just what 77 feels like. This is perhaps the most dangerous form of the passive habit, accepting decline as an inevitable verdict of age. But the science tells a different story. Jazz. Dorothy wasn't experiencing an inevitable biological collapse. She was experiencing the result of 6 specific daily inputs that had been quietly slipping for years. After age 75, our tolerance window for neglect shrinks. Small daily deficits, missing a glass of water, skipping a walk, jazz, eating too little protein, accumulate into cognitive and physical decline much faster than they did at 50. We often think of habits like hydration as drinking when we're thirsty. But after 60, jazz, your thirst mechanism becomes less reliable. By the time you feel thirsty, you are already mildly dehydrated. This isn't just about a dry mouth, it's about impaired cognition and afternoon fatigue. Jazz. The habit that feeds anxiety here is the feeling that your energy is just slipping away for no reason. But when you schedule your water like a medication, 8 ounces first thing in the morning, jazz, 8 ounces at lunch, you realize you have a dial you can turn to bring that energy back. The same applies to our muscles. We've been told that walking is enough, jazz. And while walking is wonderful for your heart, it doesn't stop sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle mass. Your muscles are your metabolic engine. They protect your bones and stabilize your joints, jazz. Without resistance training, even something as simple as chair squats in your living room, you lose 1 to 2% of your muscle mass every single year after 60. When you start to feel weak, jazz, the anxiety of losing my independence sets in. But research shows that just 12 weeks of resistance training can improve lower body strength by 35%. You are not just getting old, jazz. You are responding to inputs. When you change the inputs, you change the story. Visual, a hospital corridor quiet and sterile, the recovery gap and the power of no finally, jazz. We have to talk about the word surgery. For many adults over 60, a surgical recommendation feels like a verdict. A surgeon says you need a hip replacement or you need a valve replaced, jazz. And we hear it as a fact that is no longer open to discussion. But surgery is not a verdict. It is the beginning of a conversation, jazz. The real risk for seniors isn't usually the operation itself. Modern anesthesia is extraordinary. The real risk is the recovery gap. This is the difference between a 40-year-old's body, Jazz, which has a massive bank account of physiological reserve, and an older body, where that account is a bit lower. When a major stress like surgery is imposed, Jazz, the body has to draw on that account to fund the recovery. If the balance is too low, the body has to make difficult choices. It might prioritize wound healing at the expense of immune function, Jazz, or it might struggle to clear the inflammatory markers that lead to post-operative delirium, a state of acute confusion that can affect up to 50% of seniors after major surgery, Jazz. This is why frailty is more important than age. A robust 80-year-old might handle a surgery better than a frail 65-year-old, Jazz. If you are facing a recommendation for something like open heart surgery, and you feel that familiar hum of anxiety, remember that you have the right to ask about the recovery gap, Jazz. You have the right to ask about alternatives like TAVR, which can replace a heart valve through a catheter, with far less stress on the body. The habit that feeds anxiety is blind compliance, Jazz. The habit that creates peace is informed inquiry, visual. The narrator sitting back looking directly at the camera, the 30-day challenge. Taking back the lead, so, Jazz. How do we break this cycle of passive monitoring and quiet anxiety? How do we become like Dorothy or Frank when they finally decide to take the lead in their own health, Jazz? It doesn't require a massive lifestyle overhaul. It requires a few small, anchor habits that signal to your brain and your body that you are in charge. I want to give you a 30-day challenge, Jazz. It's built on the daily input framework we've discussed today. Week 1, the information shift. Instead of scrolling the news and worrying about the next outbreak, Jazz, I want you to visit the FDA's recall database once a week. It takes 2 minutes. If you bought eggs at Kroger or Brookshire's recently, check the codes. If they aren't on the list, the anxiety is gone, Jazz. If they are, you throw them out. Simple, proactive, done. Week 2, the anchor habit. Starting tomorrow morning before your first cup of coffee, drink 1 8-ounce glass of water. While you drink it, Jazz, perform 5 chair squats. Sit down slowly, stand up slowly. This simple 2-minute routine establishes the neurological pattern of intentional daily action. It tells your body, Jazz, we are building reserve today. Week 3, the reading behind the reading. If you have a home blood pressure monitor, use it once a day at the same time. But do it right. Sit for 5 minutes in silence, Jazz, feet flat, back supported. Calculate your pulse pressure, top number minus bottom number. Write it down. This log is worth more to your doctor than a year of rushed office measurements. Week 4, Jazz, the conversation. Identify one health concern you've been passively accepting. Maybe it's a nagging back pain or a surgery someone mentioned in passing, Jazz. Write down 3 questions for your next appointment. Ask about your physiological reserve. Ask if your protein intake of 1.0 to 1.2 grams per kilogram is enough to protect your muscles, Jazz. A final thought: there is a profound difference between healthcare that just generates findings and healthcare that protects your quality of life. Medicine is great at telling you what is wrong, Jazz, but the habits we talked about today, the water, the protein, the pulse pressure, the informed questions, those are about what goes right. You have been told that what you're experiencing, the fatigue, Jazz, the worry, the slowing down, is just part of getting older. But the science says something else. It says you are not broken. You are not past the point of change, Jazz. You have the right to understand what your body needs and why it needs it. You have the right to a calm, honest, evidence-based conversation. Start today. 1 glass of water, Jazz. 1 correctly taken measurement. 1 question for your doctor. That is how you silence the hum of anxiety. That is how you stay sharp, strong, and independent well into your 80s and beyond, Jazz. If this gave you something useful today, I hope you'll join our community here. This channel exists for one reason: to give you the specifics that get lost in a rushed appointment. Jazz. I've put together a free longevity guide linked in the description below. It maps out everything we've covered: the protein targets, the blood pressure checklists, jazz, and the surgical questions, into a clear daily plan. Grab it, keep it on your counter, and let's keep working on this together. I'm Dr. Mark. I'll see you in the next video.